Hello, everyone. Welcome to a long delayed break, but the Bitcoin Brief is back. And I am joined by the one and only Jimmy Song to relive the good old days of us doing news shows. How you been, Jimmy?
It's been great. It's been a few years, man. It feels like you're just globetrotting and don't have time for people like me. What's up, man?
Yeah, we gotta coordinate these better. And yeah, look at you, man, showing off the guns. You're getting in better shape all the time. How's the carnivory diet going?
Oh, it's going great, and I'm having a different mentality towards working out these days. I'm not dreading it as much, and I'm trying to learn how to enjoy the pain, and that's something that most Bitcoiners are probably familiar with from the last week or so. A lot of pain there.
Yeah. Oh, hey, so thanks for hooking me up with the little Bitcoin book. Here's the frustrating part of Tone's travels. I saw you at my second stop on 2.5 month travel. Thank God this is a little book because I now have to bring this with me everywhere I go for the next 2+ months before I can get home and actually leave it somewhere. Like it was so cool getting it, but then I realized, oh my God, this is like adding
You
weight
know, you
my
could
back.
also like read it or something. I know you don't like reading. There is an
Yeah,
audiobook coming
no.
out, but I mean, just
Hey,
say
you know what? This will give me something to do on my next flight. And then I got
exactly.
another
That's
book.
what I do on my flights, man.
And then I got another book as well. And I'm like, oh man, I can't take any more gifts because then too much weight to carry. But awesome. No, it's a cool book, and I will be reading it on my next flight, which is gonna take place like in a week. I really enjoyed my time here in Belize, so I extended it. Anyway, unless you have a couple of announcements, let's go on with the stories.
The only announcement I have is that my seminar is coming back to San Francisco November 5th and 6th. And I am currently working on the follow-up class, Programming Wallet, which I'm working on, hopefully finish by sometime mid-November or so, and have a class, like a preliminary class in December, something like that. And it'll teach all about that. But that's on the way. It's being worked on. Yeah, so just click programming blockchain
Mm-hmm.
and you'll see that the next one is in San Francisco, November 5th and 6th. So yeah, that's the next one that I am doing. I've been busy doing some other stuff, but this is the one that I have scheduled.
All right, very cool. And you guys know my schedule. I only have one workshop coming up. That would be in Bucharest, Romania. I'll be there in a couple of weeks. And other than that, just check out the calendar to figure out where I am going to next. All right, let's go on with the stories. We got a bunch. Let's start off with a little bit of drama on the Bcash side. We don't normally pay attention to what the hell is going on over there. But when we do, it's always very, very exciting. So here's a little exchange. I don't know who Marco977 is, but someone asked the following question. Actually, I saw that whole discussion, but basically, Amaury Sachet, the lead developer, who recently said that working on multiple clients or protocols within Bcash was silly, and he was no longer going to work on Bitcoin Unlimited, and he was only going to work
Mhm.
on Bitcoin ABC, and Bitcoin SV went off in their own direction, and I think there was another one that no one cared about. So now they're basically down to, I believe, just one protocol, Bitcoin ABC, and this is their lead developer saying the following: have you ever considered they might have been right, and this is why we got 3% and of the value, and they have 97%. And then at the bottom, it says, they told you why you lost, and you got your head so far up your ass, you can't even see it. Now, my problem with this is, why is he talking about you lost? I mean, he's on this team. Shouldn't this be why we lost? Well, like I don't get it. Like maybe you can explain this, and then but before you comment, Jimmy. Aaron posted this, and then Dead at Linux, who is Marissa Shea, same person, says there is missing context. Here is the here is the full thing. There's really not that much context missing. Basically, Is he admitting that they all lost and this is ridiculous, or what the hell's going on?
Well, so I think the whole discussion was around experts and how do you attract more experts into the community and so on. And somebody was saying, hey, you need to question expert opinion and so on. And Amory was very rightfully said right there. You question experts when you have ground to do so, not as a matter of principle, unless you want to make sure you got no experts in your community. His language is a little off from that, but basically that's what he's saying is, if you want experts in the community, you need to respect their opinion and not just like question everything they do without any basis.
Isn't that exactly what isn't that what they were doing from day one to the Bitcoin
essentially, they're realizing that their development power is just not there, and that they're not getting enough review on their stuff. And basically the whole community is basically saying, hey, like Amory, you need to do this, you need to do that. He's like one guy, and maybe they have a few other people that are working on this stuff. It's very frustrating for him, I imagine, because they're demanding all this stuff and crapping on his stuff without actually understanding the technical aspects of it, which is essentially what they've been doing with Bitcoin for a very long time. Like saying core is like all blockstream, and they don't know what they're doing without actually being technical themselves or knowing what the hell they're talking about. And he's coming up against the same thing, and this is basically his expression of frustration. Have you ever considered that they might be right? Like, hey, there's a reason why like 97% of the people are on BTC and only 3% are in BCH in terms of value. It's because all the experts are over there, and they don't like just bash experts for like as a sport or something like that, which they tend to do in BCH land. The thing, if you go back and close out of this one and go back to the context discussion, go to the other tab, scroll down a little bit. And one of the things is, Aaron said, I've said for a while now that the one thing big blockers agree on across the board is an irrational, often conspiracy-fueled antagonism against Bitcoin Core, Blockstream, et cetera, against experts, if you will. And he's absolutely right. This has been the thing that Bitcoin Cash people have been, railing against from the beginning. This is why Bitcoin Cash was created. And, Amory Sachet replies, that narrative is not present with people who actually build BCH. Many, including myself, have pointed out numerous times that this is a destructive narrative. This is very interesting because the whole time, the entire BCH community has been saying core blockstream, they don't know what they're doing, or they're not like responding to the will of the users, or they're not doing what we think should be, blah, blah, blah. And essentially what Dettlenix is saying, you know what, like you can't just complain without knowing the entire thing. You can't just complain and think that you know what the hell you're talking about. You need to actually learn this stuff and then figure out what's going on first. And in a subtle way, what he's saying is, Roger, you're being stupid. This narrative is not present with people who actually build BCH. And obviously, Roger is not one of those people. And the many, I don't know who else is actually doing the BCH promoting or whatever, but they're the ones that are constantly saying, these experts at Bitcoin Core or Blockstream are stupid and irrational, and they don't know what they're talking about, and they need to make it into easy payments so you can pay for coffee or whatever. And I think Amory Sachet is coming around to essentially what the rest of the core community came around to 2 years ago before he forked it, which is, hey, you do all that stuff and you're going to throw out the baby with the bathwater, which is essentially what BCH has done.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I'm sure if Amory Sachet is a good developer, I'm sure they would love his code review back on Bitcoin, right?
The thing is, like, I still remember what he did to me, and he took one of my pull requests, backported it into BCH, and claimed that I was like or made it look like I was contributing to BCH, which I did not appreciate at all. And he told me later that he did that because he wanted me to choose my side. Well, yeah, thanks. I chose my side. It's BTC. So at some point, I think he'll come. I can see some sort of a split happening, because this is clearly a tension that's in the BCH community, which is that he and only a few other people really control the core repository of BCH. And you have people like Roger, just sort of like railing against the experts in Bitcoin. And Amory is beginning to see that that's not very productive, and that he and the other developers, if you will, of BCH are recognizing that Roger et al. Are actually very toxic to their community, interestingly enough. And we'll see what happens, but I suspect that there will be yet another split of BCH, probably along the lines of Roger versus Amory at some point in the future. But the fault line is clearly there, and I mean that tweet is pretty damning of Roger's activities.
Yeah, no, and Roger has demonized me for years for saying, "Hey, I can't read that code. My coding days are long behind me, and I trust, the decisions of the core developers." And I've been demonized for that. Like,
Roger is going around like reading C++ code either. I mean, it's
right. Exactly.
He seems to want power more than anything else, and that's his MO. It seems like to me, but I don't know.
Ironically, if there is code that I actually used to know, it's C++. That's the one that I studied. And when I was on Wall Street, I used to do all my coding in VBA. I was very good at that one.
Everyone Visual Basic's a little bit different now, but I mean, regardless, C++. Amory seems to be softening his stance towards Bitcoin Core, as he would call it, or just Bitcoin, as I would call it, and that's something that it's kind of crazy. But yeah, this is what happens when your coin hasn't gone up at all in 2 years.
Yeah, no, and I can't wait for their next birthday. I'm gonna really make fun of that thing. I can't wait till it goes under 2%. By the way, it's not at 3% anymore. It's now down to 2.5%. But we'll get to that. Hey, so let's go over to New York, and I believe this is the same player that wanted his salary in Bitcoin. I'm not sure. I know there is one Brooklyn Nets. I still call them New Jersey Nets. There was one Brooklyn Nets player that.
Yeah, it's him. It's him. I met him at the Bitcoin Is conference with Russell Kung.
Cool. Yeah, I should have been there, but that's okay. Next time. So he wanted to do something that I think is a little questionable, but I guess it's an interesting case. He wanted to securitize his $34 million contract. There's a couple of issues here, which we're going to briefly discuss. He wanted to securitize it and sell shares of his contract to the general public. And basically what they would get is they would pay him more money now. And then if he gets a better contract after his current contract runs out, those people would benefit financially. So he's admitting that this is a security, which means he would have to get SEC's approval. But it looks like the NBA was a little bit far ahead of this, and they're now allowing this on their end. So there's two things here. This is probably a good case to discuss with the Bitcoin law review with the lawyers. But the concept is basically what I just described, and he wanted to issue it. What the hell is a $SDA token? Are you familiar with this? I thought. I was expecting an ERC20 on top of Ethereum, but what the hell is that?
Oh, no. I mean, I think that's just a ticker symbol for Spencer Dinwiddie 8. 8 is NBA number. So that's, I think, SDA.
Oh, okay, got it. So it's not, okay, so I didn't know what the hell that was. So that's just the name of his token. Okay, got it. So since it's going to be on Ethereum, it would probably be an ERC20. So clearly, he's not very familiar with the fact that Ethereum is a terrible place for him to launch his token, but he'll learn that eventually. But
I mean, he's not going to launch it, right? I think he was looking, at least when I talked to him, he was looking into doing something like this. It's an interesting idea, which is.
Well, what do you think about that idea from a financial perspective? I don't think this is a good I don't necessarily think this is a good idea. Well, I don't think it's a good idea for the general public. I think it's okay for VCs and accredited investors to do this, but I don't think it's a good idea for the general public. Your thoughts, Jimmy?
Yeah, I don't think he was meaning to sell it necessarily to the general public.
No, he was. This article specifically talks about this is a way for fans to be more directly invested in the player.
Yeah, I mean, this is taking fantasy basketball to another level, right? Like it's if he plays well and does, it's kind of like at least the way I understood it, by getting the money before his contract is over, it's all guaranteed. So you're pretty much getting a guaranteed return. He could take that money and invest it in something like Bitcoin. And I think that was the plan, something like that. But as an alternative to getting paid in Bitcoin, which I don't think the GM of the Nets was willing to do. So this was a way for him to sell all of the future earnings that he would get, or at least like some percentage of his future earnings, and essentially sell it off as a future and use that money to go, invest in Bitcoin or something like that. That I think that was the idea.
Right. Now he could also just go to the bank and get a loan based on that guaranteed contract, but okay.
I think he wanted to try something new, I think. And a bank doesn't care about you, your fans do.
True. Now at the same time, like he says, this is a way for the fans, but also look, he was going to set a minimum investment of 150,000. So
so that's probably the accredited investor thing. Yeah,
so it's like sure. So if you have 150,000 to invest, then yes. But this is certainly a security because the way he described it is this is basically in order for a person to actually get their money back with gains is not from the current contract, but from his next contract, right? So this is a bet on him performing well during this current contract that ends in 2 years, and then he would get a higher contract as his next contract, and that's when.
So the token holders get some percentage of the next contract as well, something like that.
Right. So the token holders are basically making a bet that his next contract is going to be bigger, and that's how they make their return back. So this is certainly a speculative play, and I don't see how this isn't the security. So even if the NBA allowed it, which they're not, it's in their terms of service that the players cannot do this. But even if they could, he would still have to go through the SEC.
Yeah. I mean, regardless, it was at least talking to him, he seemed to grasp the idea that this, one of the things he told me is pretty much every NBA player is scared that they're going to be bankrupt when they're out of the league. And pretty much after that documentary from ESPN came out, every NBA player, every NFL player, they almost all go hire financial advisors and figure out how to allocate their money in a reasonable way. And Jimmy, this is one of those things.
But Jimmy, here's the thing: being allowed to do this makes that problem worse, right? Because now you're getting more money in the beginning, right? When you're younger and stupider, and then owe your money from the last contract back to your investors with interest.
Well, I mean, from what I understand, what these guys do is they give it to their financial advisor, and the financial advisor takes care of it, and they get an allowance, and that's essentially
right. But not everyone is going to do that, right? So I'm just saying, if your concern is athletes spending too much money and then being broke, giving them the ability to do this could actually make that worse because now they're getting more money up front.
I think his idea is he can get more money up front so he can invest it instead of having to wait to get it, and that's That's, I mean, like
Yeah,
people
but
that
not
all the
everyone.
value of money. So that's
Yeah, but like maybe he knows what to do with, by pushing his salary to today instead of getting it later. But
I'm
other
telling
players
you
are going
right
to
now
spend it
that
on.
more athletes know about that than you think, and they're not all stupid and blowing all their money now because of that documentary that came out from ESPN.
Yeah, no. Like I said, Jimmy, no, I'm with you. I'm with you, and I'm hoping that they all do that. But for some players that don't do that, something like this will make it worse for them.
Well, I don't know. You have to be pretty sophisticated to set up something like this. So I don't know how many like high time preference people would actually like bother doing
Oh
something
man,
like
Jimmy, if this is allowed, do you know how many people are going to take advantage of this to do this for a player and take a cut on doing this by promising them more money today?
I mean, they might, but again, this is how you learn, right? Like, I mean, when you have something that's allowed, and like people do it, if enough people get burned, then other people won't do it. Like that's just how things are. I mean, like by making it illegal is just kind of a dumb way to like punish all the people that would be smart in doing it. It's I like I don't like general laws that like try to protect you against yourself for that reason.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on. And since he was mentioning in that article that he would launch it on top of Ethereum, I have to play this recent clip. I'm sure you've heard it, Jimmy, many times, but I want to play it one more time just for everybody else to hear. Let's give this a listen from Joe Lubin, the co-founder of Ethereum, and with Vitalik nodding his head yes.
Ethereum 1 you could think of as a prototype. It was an impossible project that got built, and we needed to put out something that we knew wouldn't be scalable. Ethereum 1.
So what do you think?
Well, I mean, that's not what they said in their yellow paper and their white paper and in like their ICO like documents, everything else. And Grubel's or not Grubel's, he actually like documented all of this. This is them changing their narrative, and Ethereum does this like every couple of months. And at the beginning it was smart contracts, and it was going to be proof of stake and all that stuff. And at some point it transitioned to ICOs and doing something like that. And then it became like a platform for DeFi or something like that. Now it's like money again, and it's going to be something else in the future. I mean, they continue to change the narrative, and this is what centralized players can do, is they can put out narratives and make everyone believe them because they're centralized, right? Like and Joe Lubin, Vitalik Buterin, they're two massive single points of failure. Vitalik because he created Ethereum, and Joe because he controls Infura. But I mean, this is what they're doing, is they're giving a narrative as a way to get more people to invest in Ethereum, and like that narrative actually worked. The price of Ethereum went up. Like right during and after the Ethereal conference, or I forget exactly what it was. That was in Tel Aviv at the same time as scaling. But that's their strategy. I mean, they sort of change stories every couple of months, and enough suckers don't know about their history to just sort of go and buy it, or maybe it's the suckers that are already like neck deep in Ethereum buying some more. Whatever the case is, they continue to change their narrative. We know that Joe Lubin's a weasel and a liar. He still hasn't finalized the bet with me that he proposed to me like a year and a half ago. And he continues to dodge whenever I email him or ping him or whatever. So, and Vitalik's just like he just like goes with whatever the narrative happens to be at the moment. I guess they're like pivoting away from DeFi because the Ethereum price wasn't doing well or something like that, or you have to put in like 1.5 times the collateral to get a loan. That seems so stupid. But I mean, that's what they're doing.
Yeah, and another awesome find. I don't know who actually found it, but I've seen this around Twitter. The word shitcoin is older than we all thought. Have you seen this graphic, Jimmy?
Yeah, I have. I saw this a while back, and I love the reference to flues and beans because I still remember those like back in the '99 or so. I remember Whoopi Goldberg like being featured on every flues advertisement. It was supposed to be
Yep,
internet
and
money.
I have a video of her. It's part of the ICO bubble presentation that I used to give called the Inevitable ICO Bubble, and then it became
Yeah,
the ICO
I
bubble
mean,
pop.
there were tons of shit coins, and actually, I still remember there was a literal coin called shitcoin, and I think they had something like 10 trillion coins, and it was supposed to be worth like very little, and like per coin or something like that. I mean, like they like this was something that we knew anyone could have predicted as soon as there was like even a little bit of success on one of these. Same with ICO, same with IEOs. Whatever the newest get rich quick scheme is, there's going to be a lot of imitators, and that's been the case. There's a reason why so many of them keep popping up. But this is how people learn. Once you learn that the truth and why things are the way they are, then you realize like the only real thing in this space is Bitcoin, and you go with that.
Well, yeah, I just want to read this quote, and it says, well, it was replying to someone that's saying that you can build a better Bitcoin, and here's the reply. You say that now, but if Bitcoin really takes off, I can see lots of get-rich-quick imitators coming coming on the scene. Gitcoin, Nitcoin, Witcoin, Titcoin. I think there was Titcoin. Shitcoin. Some of them are sure to attract users with promises like, why use Bitcoin? Where you can only generate 50 Bitcoins every few months. Use shitcoin instead, and you'll get 51 shitcoins every 2 minutes. And this was written in November of 2010. So this is written back like when Bitcoin was virtually still free, less than 10 cents at that time, because the WikiLeaks news did not hit the scene until December of 2010, and Silk Road didn't launch until February 2011. So this is before there was any use case for Bitcoin.
This was before any altcoin. Namecoin launched in 2011, as did Tenebricks, IX Coin, Fairbricks, which was Charlie's previous coin before he launched Litecoin. And like all of those happened in, I think it was like August of 2011. So this preceded that by like a good 9 months.
Right. And yeah, so and so many fools fell for all this altcoin stuff, and hopefully they're all going to be coming around. All right, we got a few more stories. Let's talk about Venezuela. And this was a really weird, like, I don't know what this publication is, but so I saw
that's Tales from the Crypto or something like that. Right. It's Marty Bent's podcast.
I saw I'm sorry, whose podcast?
Marty Bent.
Marty
Tales from the Crypt. Yeah.
So I see the headline, and it's a Bloomberg headline, and I'm reading this article thinking it's a Bloomberg article, and very quickly I find out, like, wow, that doesn't sound like an author from Bloomberg, which is a weird practice. So then I actually went to the Bloomberg article because I do like my traditional media, and they do mention how Venezuela seems to be using Bitcoin to get around sanctions, because they started confiscating, mining equipment, and now the government is pretty much mining. But the government will be able to successfully mine Bitcoin the way that government has been able to successfully mine the oil. So I don't expect much out of that insanity. But it does create an interesting situation where Venezuela could, create a huge demand for Bitcoin with large global transactions.
Yeah, I mean, from the TFTC article, it sounded to me like what they were doing is they got cryptocurrency, or they got Bitcoin almost accidentally. But they're now like, oh, wait, this is actually really useful because we can't pay for anything. I mean, Venezuela is a complete mess. And what they're doing is they're empowering their cronies or the people that are closer to the government through money printing. And that and it's kind of crazy, but they're the ones that are benefiting the most at the expense of everybody else. And this is why more than I think 10% of their population has like exited the country to places like Colombia and Brazil. So what they seem to be doing is they stumbled onto this and they're figuring out that it's very useful. And as a result, they might like almost accidentally become like this like power holder of Bitcoins or something like that. We'll see.
Right. Now, I do have a problem with this Tales from the Crypt article. It says right here, we have come to find that the Petro was nothing more than a Trojan horse of a media campaign to make the Venezuelan people aware of what Bitcoin and altcoin miners looked like so that they could help the government confiscate the equipment. I think this is a bullshit statement. Like this is why where is the evidence for this? Do you really believe this nonsense, Jimmy? Oh, did I lose your audio?
Well, it's mostly speculating. I mean, it's mostly is that this is something that's entirely possible, and if they're doing it via local Bitcoins, wow, that's crazy.
Right, but like, no, Venezuela is not that coordinated to do anything like this. Venezuela was actually stupid enough to think that their petrol was going to work when this channel told you from day one that it's a ridiculous idea. And I've been saying the same thing about Russia. It's irrelevant if Russia comes out with a gold-backed ruble. No one is going to care, right? Unless you can send an airplane full of rubles and Putin sends you the gold back to your country, no one is going to trust the gold-backed ruble. It's irrelevant. You don't trust the currency. You trust the government that issues that currency. And it's irrelevant if China and Russia are backing their currency by with gold or anything else. It only matters whether you trust that government to give you that backing when you give them back their currency, and they're not going to do that.
Yeah, and that's I mean, it's the whole gold convertibility thing. It's once it's convertible, then it's strongly pegged to gold. But I don't think that's going to happen. Bitcoin's a bearer asset. You don't need a national currency if you already have Bitcoin. And yeah.
And Jimmy, sorry, how do we educate the Bloomberg journalists who are supposed to be smarter and explain to them that Ethereum is not decentralized, right? Like in their article, Bitcoin and Ethereum use decentralized online ledgers known as a blockchain. No, Bitcoin is a decentralized ledger that's a blockchain. Ethereum is a centralized, unscalable piece of crap. And so how do we get like real journalists to understand that?
Good question. I don't know. We know that they don't. So educating the media is not like one of my priorities per se. I'd rather educate people directly. So that's my thought.
All right. So where do we go from here? Let's talk about Lightning. This was an article over in CoinDesk. A dangerous bug in Bitcoin's Lightning network has been fixed. So I'm assuming this is in regards to that. I didn't get a chance to read through this, right, Jimmy?
Yeah. It's the CVE, like 12,998, 12,999, and 13,000. But basically, these are all sort of exploits. Essentially, the bug was that if you open a channel and didn't check that the commitment transaction already was there or on the blockchain or something like that, then the attacker could potentially like exploit that by making you believe that you received Bitcoins when you didn't. Essentially they fixed it. I was kind of surprised because that seems like something elementary that you should do as part of the channel opening procedure. But apparently all of these, all all of these, implementations didn't do it. That said, they seem to, have owned up to it, which I appreciate. And, hopefully they do better going forward.
All right. And these are, and I explained this many, many times before, and I'll do it again right now. When Bitcoin fixes critical destructive bugs, it creates additional confidence in the Bitcoin network and protocol that we're now even safer than we thought we were. This is not the case for shitcoins. And by shitcoins, I mean anything other than Bitcoin, okay? When critical bugs are discovered in your shitcoin, that is bad, not good, because unlike Bitcoin, that critical bug could be exploited and you can cash out in Bitcoin. But in Bitcoin, that critical bug would be very, very difficult to exploit because it's very difficult to profit on exploiting that bug. Because if you exploit the bug, you crash the entire price of the crypto space. So you're not financially incentivized to exploit bugs on Bitcoin, thank you game theory, but you are financially incentivized to exploit shitcoins. Just to explain that one more time.
Yeah, and you've made this argument before, and hopefully our audience gets it. But that's essentially right.
All right. And speaking of potential bugs, watch out for a malware virus that can actually change your. I mean, I don't know who the hell is typing out public keys, but if you are, this malware will replace it with their own. And so just be careful that lots of malware is being written to steal your keys. Final story. This is a very good article. Bitcoin is not backed by nothing, and it explains the value proposition of Bitcoin. I still have to finish reading it. I read about half, and it was very, very good. Jimmy, I'm sure you read the whole thing. And I have a whole presentation about slightly different reasons, but there's many reasons as to why Bitcoin is valuable, and it doesn't need a physical backing. The fact that it doesn't have a physical backing is what gives it these qualities of being unconfiscatable and censorship resistant. Anything you want to add? But check out the link in the video description, guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great article, and Parker Lewis has been writing some amazing articles for Unchained Capital. He's a friend of mine, and he's based at Austin, so I see him pretty often. But yeah, excellent series of articles giving the case for Bitcoin from an economics perspective to, I think, potential hedge fund managers and venture capitalists and so on. And it's very sound. He makes pretty airtight arguments, draws on sort of a lot of Safedean's work and so on. But yeah, it's scarcity in the digital realm, and that is very hard for a lot of people to wrap their minds around. But it is backed by something, and it's backed by mathematical scarcity, and that's something that's a little bit different than what people typically think of it, because they only see sort of things in the physical world as real, but things in the digital world are just as real, right? Like it's your private key, your security key, your email address, all of these things are in the digital world. They're just as real as things are in the physical world, and that's what a lot of people have trouble getting around. And this is the argument that he's making.
Yeah, and Safety made a very good argument against Peter Schiff when they were debating on my channel, where Peter Schiff is on this thing that, like, how can Bitcoin be valuable? It doesn't have a physical form. And Safety made the argument, well, Peter, if with a click of a button, I can delete all your digital data, all your pictures, all your contacts, all of your social media, that none of that has a physical form, how much would you value that?
And including his dollar balance in his bank account, right? Like it's kind of crazy, but that's
right.
It's all digital.
And I kind of started thinking about these two aspects of it. And when people keep saying that Bitcoin could be replaced by a shitcoin because it's better, the way I now try to make this argument is, imagine, Jimmy, if all of your digital media, all of your contacts, all of your pictures, your digital media doesn't have a physical form, imagine if it was scarce like Bitcoin, that you couldn't make a copy of your pictures. You only had one set of pictures, and you had to choose which database those pictures were on. And if you chose the wrong database and that database blew up, you lost all of your pictures. And so you would stay with the one that everybody else is using. So this is why Bitcoin isn't going anywhere, because people are not going to move their value to another shitcoin unless everybody else moves. And everyone is not going to move at the same time. It's the same argument yeah.
I mean, that's one argument. I would say the bigger argument is that all those other things are centralized. You're going back to fiat.
Well, yeah, but people don't believe that they're centralized, right? Like they believe that Ethereum and Monero and Litecoin are just as decentralized as Bitcoin. So
well, then they'll learn a very expensive lesson because they're not. And
yeah, I know, but if we even if we give them the benefit of the doubt, and those other things.
I'm not ceding that ground, man. That's the hill I want to die on. Is that they're not decentralized. That's the thing. Right. And as soon as as soon as that becomes obvious, then it's very clear why Bitcoin is the only one that's actually interesting. Everything else is fiat money. And I've made this argument before. If it's fiat money, then it's not interesting in the least because somebody else controls it and you are not sovereign over your own coins. And if you're not sovereign over your own coins, then what the hell is the point? It's, you have a claim on their ledger that they might honor if they feel like it, if they don't want to bail out somebody else or whatever. So it's idiotic.
And all of that is true, and I'm still going to concede saying that if there was something else that was decentralized, people still ain't moving. Yeah. So Bitcoin ain't going nowhere.
Well, there are network effects. You're right, and I've made that argument in the past too. But I mean, I don't think that's nearly as strong.
Oh, so our friend, the Cornell professor, Emin Gunsayer, went all haywire over the mining difficulty drop of 30%, which never actually happened, and everyone's making fun of his statistic skills. Anything you want to comment on that? I don't have a link, but I can get it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I feel really bad for him because in a sense, he's got so much pride that he can't admit that he's wrong about anything, But
he's wrong but in reality, he's wrong about everything.
Yeah, he is. And this is what happens to prideful people is that they need to be right. So they will defend idiotic statements that they've made, as a result. I think I'm reasonable enough to think that if somebody pointed out a clear error in something that I said, that I would be able to say, hey, you know what? Like, you're right. I was wrong or something like that. And I think even said on this channel, okay, if this, and this happens, then I'll admit I was wrong. He never gives any sort of indicator like that. The thing about hash rate is that it is very volatile in the sense that it's really only measured or it's an inferred number, and it's inferred from the number of blocks that are found. So like every once in a while, just because of statistical anomalies, you'll not find a block. About once a year, there will be like 2 or 3 hours where you won't find a block. And that happens every once in a while, just from statistics. That's just sort of like the distribution of how long the next block will be found. It's on average 10 minutes, but oftentimes it'll be a lot shorter, and rarely it will be longer, but it's not impossible. So we had many of those blocks, I guess, in that day, and it looked like a 30% drop because, again, that's an inferred number. But then shot past the other thing. It sort of like overcorrected a little bit, or more hashing power came online. It's kind of like saying, okay, you won $500 playing the lottery yesterday. What happened? Like, did something different happen yesterday? Like, on average, if you play the lottery enough times, you're going to win, like sometimes, but it's like your luck is sort of, or the probability of winning is an inferred number. It's not something that you should based on like a few data points, right? Like, oh, you won yesterday, that means you're going to win every time, or they screwed up the lottery and you know, like the probabilities are all wrong. That's never something that you would say. It's you know, it just happened that during those couple of days, you know, like the statistics were, you know, I mean, we just kind of got unlucky as a community, but then we got super lucky like a few days later. So it's you know, this is a very basic thing that a professor from Cornell should be able to figure out. Unfortunately, he's so anti-Bitcoin at this point that anything that comes out, like he will essentially support any argument against Bitcoin no matter what. He seems to think that Bitcoin is like politics, where if you can convince enough people that it's bad, that it would go away, or that he has the ability to hurt it. Sorry, Goon, that's not how things work. It's like physics. People will go towards the harder money, just like kind of like people will fall if you drop them, you know, like from a high place or something like that, or like it's like the law of gravity. People will come towards it. And that's the thing that I don't think he wants to admit, but he instinctively knows. I actually think he's very smart. I've read some of his papers, like the selfish mining attack and so on. But you know, like the man has way too much pride, and until he corrects that, I think he's going to be the butt of many Bitcoin jokes for a very long time.
All right, Jimmy, I can let you go before I do charts, but you're welcome to stick around. And want to say a few more words about your process?
Yeah, I have some things to do, but you know, my next seminar is coming in San Francisco, November 5th and 6th. You can apply right there. And again, I am working on a second seminar that is programming wallet. That'll cover stuff like, you know, SegWit addresses, you know, redeeming SegWit, HD wallets, mnemonic backups, you know, partially signed Bitcoin transactions, neutrino, and lots of other stuff that people have not, that I didn't cover in my first book or my first seminar. The other thing is the Little Bitcoin book. Please take a look at it if you haven't. It's $3.88 for the Kindle. It is $8.88 if you want the paperback. We do have a very limited number of hardcover ones, but we're using those to raise money for translations. Currently, we're working on Portuguese, Chinese, Korean, I believe maybe French and Italian as well, possibly German and Russian. Yeah. So we're gonna cover a lot of different languages. We want this all over the world and in distressed places and so on. So you know, like please help support that by buying some books.
All right, very cool. And of course, your other book, Programming
Bitcoin. Yeah. That's available on Amazon. I'm trying to write a follow-up to it. So I'll probably do that after I design the seminar and get some feedback. And you know, that's probably at least a few years away.
All right, very cool. All right, Jimmy, we'll let you go. I'm gonna do some charts, and hopefully we'll do another show soon.
All right, this song is done.
I'm gonna say goodbye to Jimmy. We're gonna get back into screen share. That's the Little Bitcoin book, and of course his other book, Programming Bitcoin. You can find it right there on Jimmy Song's website. All right, we can close those. Let's close our stories from the day. Boom, boom. They're all in video in the links and below, guys. Okay, and actually I'm gonna leave this one because I need to finish reading it. All right. My schedule, where am I going next? I decided to stay in Georgia, and then I'm going to go to Prague for Hackers Congress. After that, I'll be in Romania, then the UK for CC Forum. You can register for free. Check my just check my Twitter. I haven't been tweeting much for a code that will let you get into this conference for free. Then, of course, our Bali event. You can check out the description to the Bali event, which is slowly filling up, which is absolutely great. To connect hedge funds. Hey, if you want to support, please check out the affiliates page. And if you want some cool t-shirts, go to the store. All right, price of Bitcoin. Monthly chart is giving us the first red candle in this Heikin-Ashi look. Historically, once these things go red, they tend to stay that way. We have a little bit of an anomaly right here where we have a red candle, and that was the only one. Other than that, oh, we have one more single red candle here. So maybe not that much of consistency here. The monthly chart, however, is still bullish, but it's not looking very good. The weekly chart is sitting right on the 30-period moving average. This is the 30-week moving average. This chart activated a short trade last week once we started trading below $9,800. Using the weekly scale with sequential has actually been very, very good. If I go backwards in this, there was no trade for about 8 weeks. The last time there was a trade according to the weekly scale was when this green 2 went above this green 1 and above the 9. That was the last time a long trade was activated. Now, I personally saw the short trade being activated on this 9 when it wasn't able to break setup trend off of a reversal candle. And this trade probably on a weekly scale would have exited you with a slight loss or break even when it closed as a green 1 in the following candle. Prior to that, there was a clean bullish trade on this green 3 above the green 2. Now, I remember that why I didn't like this long trade, and that's because on this candle, Tether got sued by the New York Attorney General. So that created a very weird environment for me, and I didn't trust this, and therefore the price went up without my bullish trade. This is where I exited the bullish trade that I entered at the end of the year when I thought Bitcoin was oversold. But the sequential has done well on a weekly scale. And right now, the sequential on the weekly is still saying there's going to be more downside, probably at least 4 more weeks of downside, or they could be flat. But I am looking for a 9 weekly at this point. The daily chart, this is not a great candle right here. We are now on our second candle below the 200-day moving average. This was one of our major discussion points in Baku when I was sitting with the team of Adaptive Capital. And they had made it very clear that Bitcoin does not sit below the 200-day moving average in a bull market. So the longer we sit below this 200-day moving average, either we are turning into a bear market or the bull market never really started, and this was a very weird and unusually high dead cat bounce. This is the Venzen scenario where we can go almost back to the all-time high and still be in a bear market that has years to go. Also, the Tyler Jenks scenario of hyperwave, which could take years to achieve its target. In hindsight, I believe that 80 to 90% of this run up to the upside was due to shitcoin exodus into Bitcoin, and new people didn't actually come in. Yes, there was some institutional investors, but not enough, and retail is not coming yet. So what does this mean? This is not a very good candle. We have about 4 hours to go before this candle closes, and I do believe there's a high chance that this will get you into a 9. Now that's 5 more days. So let me get my 5 candles takes us to October 3rd. As you guys know, oh wait, 5 more candles. Sorry, because I'm on the current candle. So that means 5 more candles. That's 6 candles, including the current one. And that takes us to October 4th. That comes in dangerously close to my October 5th reversal point, right? My October 5th, I still have to write up that article. My critical October 5th point And potentially that's going to be the low. Let's see if that happens. I am keeping an eye on October 5th to try and figure out what the hell is going to happen that day. And let's see if Bitcoin has one more big drop in it. And if Bitcoin drops to the low 7,000s into October 5th for a daily 9, I can certainly see that as a buy, but it'll be a buy within a bearish weekly chart. So we will see how that goes. Ideally, I want this thing to go up a little bit the rest of the day because I want this 5 candle to close as high as possible, because that makes it easier to get to a 9, because the 9 will have to close lower than the 5. So the lower we close in the next 4 hours, the more, the further down you would have to go for the next 4 weeks in order to still print a 9 on a weekly. So we will see what this means. The daily could be in conflict with the weekly. 12-hour, like I said a few days ago, the going under 8,300 was going to be very, very dangerous, and it would create a new low, which is exactly what it did. And if we look at the 4-hour chart, if we draw this red line from the bodies, the lowest body of these candles, you can see how we perfectly back tested this line last night. Well, what time zone is this chart in? It's in UTC time. So on this candle, we perfectly back tested this area. And if we can't break this area, like if we can't break 8,300, that's a problem. And that means the moment, and I can actually raise this line at this point. So right now, in my point of view, if Bitcoin drops below 79.50, that accelerates the drop, and I would anticipate a new low. So when is this going to happen? Probably in a day or two, unless we can break 8,300. If we can't break 8,300 and we start approaching the $8,000 area, below 9,500, below 79.50, floodgates open one more time in a repeat of what happened on September 26th with the big drop once we went below 8,300. Okay. So someone is asking you, what's up with the 5th of October date? So on my website, when I think on Monday, we're going to redo the menu bar. And on Monday, you will see my blog section. Now, I have not written anything on my blog in probably years. It has been years. But if you just scroll down a little bit, I wrote this article in July of 2017 talking about my time cycles. And I even gave you some Python code to generate these dates. And I don't have my list of dates here. I need to write an update to this article. But the next date that is critical, but not as critical as the August 11th date was. And the August 11th date, I calculated that back in 2014. That was before SegWit even existed. And you can see how critical the tone-based critical Bitcoin lifecycle date that I wrote would be the most important day in the life of Bitcoin, probably forever. And I wrote about that in 2014, and it turned out to be pretty much the day that SegWit got activated, off by a day. I think that's not bad, 3 years ahead before SegWit even existed. And so I need to write an update to this article, and the next critical date would be October 5th of this year, and then we have to wait another slightly over 2 more years for the next critical date. All right. So that's where you can find that stuff. Maybe one day I'll start writing on my blog again. Next, what are we going to do? We're going to look at the 4-hour chart. That was the 4-hour chart, right? So as long as Bitcoin stays between these two lines, it's in a no trade zone. Above 8,300, bullish. Below 79.50, I'm bearish. Okay, 15-minute chart, not interesting. The mining profitability. See, this is interesting. Let's see if we can come back to this orange line. What is this? Oh, this is the hash rate. And look, new all-time high. How about that? This is the total market cap, and that's not looking good at all. This is Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin dominance isn't doing that great right now either. So Ethereum's probably up, and it is for now. Ethereum versus the dollar is not looking as great. And I mean, Ethereum's going back to $2 or lower. I'm pretty convinced of that. Litecoin versus Bitcoin is on the verge of a total death spiral. So let's give it another few months. BCH is on the verge of a total death spiral. Let's give this another few months as well for people to realize it. I always keep an eye on this chart. I have a mental bet with myself that Binance will be below the zero line by the end of the year. So if I put this at exactly 2019, Binance is still up 21% against Bitcoin. And I think it will be below zero by end of year. We'll see if it is. It's the weekend. Gold isn't trading. This is the daily gold chart. This does not look very good. Yes, that's a 9, but there was no follow through. And if Monday is bearish, gold could be in a little bit of trouble. And if gold falls below these moving averages, I think gold can easily pull back to its breakout area of the Fibonacci line, and that's where you can either have a buy the dip, or this was a fake rally, just like we potentially had or still have in Bitcoin. Silver looks a lot worse. Silver looks like it's ready to break down once again, and I was skeptical of these precious metal rallies, just like I was of the Bitcoin rally, for very similar reasons. The gap on oil has finally been fully closed, like I expected as well. And let's see if oil gets to a 9 and potentially start going higher. S&P did not have a good Friday. Let's wait till Monday and figure that one out. And that's it. I don't feel like going through stocks today. So we're going to go ahead and leave it there. All right, guys. I think it's past midnight where I am, and it's a Saturday night, and this is how I'm spending it. But that's also because I was out way too late last night. And I'm going out to the wine countryside tomorrow, so I'll be outside of the city for the next few days. If there's internet, I'll try and bring you a stream. If not, I'll see you in a few days when I'm back in Belize. All right. That's it, guys. Hey, check out the Financial Summit. Unconfiscatable should go on sale very soon. Sorry for the delay. And yeah, and check out my upcoming calendar and where I'm speaking. All right, guys, that's it for me. I will see you all on the next one.